From the soil we came, to the dust we will return. What it do is Mr. Media X, aka Art Papi, aka Impandle Ngafihleki. Today we are reviewing Dust by Priddy Ugly, the final testament, the final album cover we get to see from Priddy Ugly. It's a sad moment for me because when you get to see an artist as talented as Mr. Priddy Ugly bow out the game, it's never a fun thing to see. But when we take a look at this cover art, I feel if you're gonna bow out the game, if you game you leave the game on a high. You leave the game on a high. So when I dissect this album cover, what I saw, I saw obviously the two main elements that I saw was the photography and the painting. So I'll just take a look at those two things. Now, the photography was done by Children of Midas. You can check him out there on Instagram. Although he doesn't seem too active, but his work looks pretty hard. What he did here was pretty hard. I'd just like to shout out at him for two things he handled pretty well on this album cover. Not pretty well. You see what I did there? Two things I think he handled pretty well in this album cover were firstly the lighting. The lighting work, he went all Rembrandt. If you've heard of Rembrandt, the father of lighting, I feel like the lighting is such an important part of this photograph for this album cover. He didn't play games with it. It's intentional and it gets the job done. The other thing is just the direction of Priddy Ugly on this cover. Angazi whether it was Priddy Ugly who came up with the concept of that he wants us back to the camera. Enga's face, but how that was handled, that composition, that whole element in there was done very, very well. The fact that he's seated, we appreciate that. We appreciate good art direction on the photography side of things. It's a studio shoot as we see, but it was handled so well. It was a final testament. You could see that nobody was playing here. Everybody was taking this seriously. When we go to the painting, I'm gonna do my best to keep the painting just showing whilst I'm talking here. But one thing we appreciate, like indoor that we appreciate a lot here, is documentation. Now there's a few artists who are good with the documentation side of things, but with our album cover sometimes, especially like South Africa, we're lacking. See, games lisitsing kakhulu. So we appreciate the painting was done by Tumi Kalipa, and he obviously he came through with a very, I really appreciate how he was able to get the details of this album cover. Very detailed. If you've ever had to do a painting, you know how difficult it can be to separate, especially things that are on the skin. When you're making the skin, when you're painting or drawing the skin, to separate the hair from the light, from the actual skin, from the bones that connect inside. It's a whole process that goes in. But he was able to, when you look at this painting deep enough, he of this album cover, he was able to separate these elements. You can see the dust dropping on the side of Priddy Ugly. But you can also see the tattoo, the wings tattoo. Priddy Ugly is turning into dust before our eyes. Man's is turning into dust. It's beautiful. And also then the color, just the color. As much as this album is called Dust, we appreciate the color, because as much as this talks about dust, it also talks about life. Green is life. Brown, the almost nudish browns / cream whites that were used for the dust. It's beautiful work. It's a beautiful team. It's a beautiful send-off to Mr. Priddy Ugly. For me, it scores a high 8.5. The only thing I would have done if I was art directing on this project, since it is his final testament as Priddy Ugly. Now, artists do this thing. You never know whether it's him as Priddy Ugly. Norma, he says it's the last album as Priddy Ugly. Maybe he's going to rebrand to another name. Who knows? But I would say if you go out all commando. If it was my art direction, I'd be like, dude, if you're leaving this game, go bare, bro. I been boy. exactly like Tupac ran with the same flow. Gunplay also had another album cover where he just put it all out there tastefully as well. But I mean that's just me. You know how I do. I pull through on that tip. But it's a beautiful album cover. It's beautiful work. I'm proud to have been alive during the making of this. Shout out to this team. It's an 8.5 from Art Papi. It's probably the highest scoring one so far. Shout out to the team. Let's get it.